Right, let's talk about you and what you're up to now. So obviously you're currently a player coach with Man United's under 21s. There were pictures of you training with the first team as well. What was that all about? You train with them all the time, or
no? Basically,
sorry, can I ask? You've not actually retired, right?
Not officially, no.
Okay.
So my role, I still train most days with the 21s. Like at the moment, we're sort of down to the bare bones with players out on loan, players in and around the first team squad. And with the under 21s, you're allowed 3 overage players, mainly for first team players returning back from injury and so on. So yeah, the time recently that was in the press was the under 18s had a big game in the FA Youth Cup. The first team needed, I think it was like 8 or 9 of the under 21 players. We only had 8, so I made the 9th one up. And yeah, it's just to fill their numbers up basically. It's never around Premier League games. I think that was the day before the Wigan game in the Cup. So just a case of filling in, making the numbers up. And
if Man United had problems with the midfield, right, and they literally were down to the bare bones in training, there was a catastrophe, or people were ill, off sick with a bug. In theory, can you play for Man United in the Premier League?
I think my contract is like a playing contract, so potentially, but I don't think it will ever get to that.
Look at that little smirk on his face.
When you went to train, was the pace like, wow, back to like, you remember the pace, or was it
No,
fine?
to be fair, there's probably 10, 12 times throughout last season I trained as well. And because I'm training most days with the 21s, there's a large number of them players as well. So it's similar to what we would. Obviously, the quality is probably a little bit better and the know-how with the experience. But yeah, no, the standards.
You're definitely looking at Casemiro and you're going, I could play that.
Have you been close, do you think, to getting a call up?
No, I think this time last year there was a lot of injuries, weren't there?
Yeah.
And I think I weren't close.
Were you getting in early? Going, all right.
But was Sabitzer signed late, didn't he? Last minute. So I think that might have been the closest, but I don't think so.
Okay. So you're currently in charge, or you're player coach of the under 21s. Is that right?
Yeah, not in charge, but yeah.
Okay. How much involvement do you and the under 21s have with Eric Ten Hag? Is it a day-to-day?
Well, the 21s manager, I'm not sure. Probably a weekly thing. We try and work to a similar principles to what the first team work at, to make one, so the lads have that continuity when they do step up and train with the first team, so they're not looking like fish out of waters with certain tactics. And yeah, no, the staff are really good. If we've got any questions regarding certain tactics, they're always quite open with us and willing to give us advice and give us their opinion on certain things.
So there would have been some players that are coming into the first team now, like Manu, who you would have seen a lot of last season, right? I mean, he looks fantastic. Tell me a bit about him and how much you've seen of him.
Yeah, no, last year he was, what would he have been? Probably a second-year scholar last year. So quite a young, still eligible to play for the 18s last year, but still managed to force his way into the under-21s team, and probably consistently throughout the season was one of our top 2 or 3 players. This season has gone with the first team, and as you can see, hasn't looked back. Probably would have played the first game of the season if he didn't get injured in pre-season against Real Madrid. And I think just the decision-making, composure, and sort of game intelligence that he's showing at such a young age is brilliant. And I think he's bedded into the team, and it looks a smooth transition for him.
What age did you make your debut? 16, wasn't it? Using the first team environment.
Yeah.
Is there a difference now between young kids getting into that first team environment than there was when you came through?
I think there's a massive difference. Obviously, Derby to Man United is a big difference in club size. For me personally, I was involved when I was at school at 15. I was on the bench 3 times under John Gregory, and I would have Thursday mornings off school to go and train with the first team.
Yeah.
At what age?
15.
Wow.
But we had
At 15, you're training with the first team?
Yeah, it was obviously good learning curve, but there was your Ravanellis, Rob Lee,
Wow,
King Cladsey. There was a lot of players I'd grown up watching at Derby and at different clubs. But we had the reserve league in between first team and under 19 football at the time.
I missed that reserve league.
No, I think everyone does, in terms of if first team players didn't play on the Saturday, they had to play on the Tuesday night or Monday night for the reserves. So if you're too good for the 19, say you're playing for the reserve, you're coming up against seasoned pros, and that transition into it's like a first team environment, wasn't it?
Yeah, of course.
So you're almost ready for the next step into first team football. Whereas now, I think, especially at most Premier League clubs, that jump from under 21 football, which is virtually an under 19s league, near enough, into a first team environment in the Premier League is such a massive jump, which is why majority of the clubs will try and loan players out to League One, League Two, conference teams. But we had the bridging that gap was the reserve league.
Do you see a big difference now between the young players coming through with their attitude to the young players, and I include you in this, when you were coming through? Because it's almost now like you get close to the first team and you're a superstar. Do you see a completely different attitude towards the young players nowadays?
I think so, but I don't think that's necessarily their fault. I remember when I was coming through, even though I was playing regular in Derby's first team at 16, if I tried something in training and megs on someone or anything, a senior player, the next tackle I'm getting lifted and ending up on my back. So,
can you give us an example of that?
The one that comes to mind is Michael Johnson, big old centre half, and every time Fridays in the little five-a-side, I'd mess about, try and meg him, and I still picture his big Joma football boots with his six studs, and he's happy to come flying into a tackle afterwards. Whereas now, I think none of that really happens, even to the point of the lads having jobs and staying till 5:30 every night, making sure all the change rooms are cleaned and little bits and bobs like that, washing boots for the first team.
Scrubbing toilets with a toothbrush.
I missed that reserve.
All that kind of thing.
That's the worst thing they ever did, was get rid of that reserve.
Yeah, a lot of people have said that.
Because, as you said there, I remember playing against Arsenal in the reserve league, and they had people like Parla, Edu, like these guys, like I think Sol Campbell was coming back from injury, and you're like, oh my goodness gracious me, like it was incredible. But to get rid of that, I always thought was the wrong decision. I don't even know what the reasons were for getting rid of that.
No.
I think it'd be difficult nowadays, though, wouldn't it, to get a first team player in the Premier League on X amount to say, oh, you're playing at, like at Derby, we used to play at Burton Albion Stadium
on a Tuesday night.
On a Tuesday,
that's not happening.
I don't think you get in.
That's not happening. You wouldn't do it, Benny.
Well, I did it.
No, but you wouldn't do it now. If you're on 150 grand a week, Benny, you're playing Tuesday, you'd be like, no chance.
No, we'll do it.
I'm watching Spider-Man v Superman or whatever you want. Let me ask you, Scott McTominay, he was speaking to the High Performance podcast about Eric Ten Hag. He said he's an amazing manager with great tactical dimensions to his game. I'm a big fan of Eric Ten Hag. There's been a lot of injuries to Manchester United this season, as most clubs have had. And it's not been so far as good as perhaps it ended last season for United. Of course, 2 cup finals, won the League Cup, top 4. Just tell me a bit about where you think United are at the moment. And personally, I think you've got to give every manager time at the moment, because people are so quick to go. Even West Ham fans at the top of the show, I don't know if you heard it, get him out. We should be above 6 in the league. You know, you have to understand, you know, what's going on at the club, the differences between where the club was before he even got there and where they are now. What do you make of Eric Ten Hag at Manchester United? What do you make of Manchester United's season so far?
I know the league position's not where the club want to be, but I think things are on the right trajectory, as you say, and like Scott has said, I think the manager's got good ideas, and we saw in patches last year that the lads are buying into that. And I had this argument regular with Man United fans and other fans. For example, when Newcastle have a few injuries and Tottenham had a few injuries, that's their excuse for not getting the results. For stages of the season, Man United have not had their strongest back four from last season. Mount, Casemiro have been missing. Anthony was missing. So that sort of...
Still is, isn't he? Oh, sorry, my bad.
Sorry. You've almost got sort of 6 or 7 players that realistically would be in the first starting 11. But that sort of gets brushed under the carpet if the results aren't going well. So I think the lads seem to be buying into the manager's ideas. And like you say, patience is needed with a lot of managers, and be interesting to see what the club can do as and when he's got a fully fit squad of his own signings.
Is it difficult with all the noise on the outside, or is it such a everyone's together inside? Because obviously there's always rumours that players are not having him, but can you feel it when you're inside? I know you with the 21s, but can you feel all the noise and everything that comes with it?
I think everything gets blown out of proportion, whether good or bad, with the size of the club. But like I say, it looks from a slight distance, but it looks like a close-knit group. I think the club's been unfortunate with, as I say, 5 or 6 key injuries in certain positions. And I'm excited to see them back once everyone's fully back fit, integrating with the younger players that are doing well, like Kobe and Garnacho.
Do you think, you mentioned Mason Mount there, we've of course not seen him, he's been sidelined with injuries. Do you think that going forward Manchester United will move away from investing in ready-made stars, maybe towards the back end of their career, which they've done recently, like Casemiro and Varane, of course? Or do you think the future for Man United is more of the young brigade, Garnacho and Manu, coming through? Do you think that's the angle that United will be taking over the next 12 to 18 months going forward?
I personally think it'll be a mix. I don't think you can do one or the other. We've seen sort of your PSGs try and do it with the more senior players to get over the line, and it's not quite happened. And apart from when Sir Alex did it in the mid-90s with a really young squad, I don't think we've seen it since. So if you can have a bit of experience potentially through the spine of the team, and then sort of blending that with your Kobe Mainoo, Garnacho, Willy Camboila, Dan Gore, they've been in and around the first team this season. I think you can get a lot of success that way, but I think it'll be difficult to do one or the other. I think it'll have to be a combination.
Okay.
talkSPORT Drive, super opinionated sporting debate, Monday to Friday afternoon from 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.